or rather to reintroduce them. Sitting closer to me, I have Fatma Mohammed. She is a fibroid survivor, and on my far end, I have Mwanakame Athman, right? And she is a nurse. I've gotten the name right. Such a unique name. Ladies, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Fatma, let me begin with you. Tell me your story. How did you know you had fibroids? What did you do? And you've become a survivor out of it. Has it changed and impacted your life any different? Tell me about it.
In a huge way. First of all, I have to say thank you for having us. And also, they say it's more like an opportunity for many women to learn more about uterine fibroids, because I've realized that it's one of those topics that not many people want to discuss, because there are so many myths related to fibroids, and we just want to debunk the myths. So for me, I discovered that I had uterine fibroids several years ago. That's very many years ago, but it was a tiny fibroid, and they called it a pea-sized fibroid. So when I found out I had this fibroid, I was very confused, mainly because I was very fit and very healthy. I was green. I did not do any sugar, any salt, none of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then so I was really confused, like, where would this come from? Because most people say, you know, maybe if you eat too much red meat, or if you drink alcohol, or if you smoke. I don't do any of those things. So what happened was I just had to go to the hospital. And when I went to the hospital, I went to see a gynecologist, and he advised for me to have an ultrasound. So what you do is actually you just go to the hospital, the radiology department, and what they did was they carried out the ultrasound, and they found the fibroid. So when the doctor spoke to me afterwards with my results, what he wanted to do, he called it watchful waiting. He just said, let's just wait, because, you know, like there's this checklist. They have to ask you, do you smoke? Do you drink? Are you on any medication? So since he called my situation an asymptomatic fibroid, I did not have that many symptoms, and I was not having any problems. So he felt like my lifestyle would not lead to me getting maybe more fibroids or bigger, or the condition getting worse. So because of that, I would always just go back just to get for regular checkups. But unfortunately, when I went back, I had to change doctors, because I felt like my body was not the same. I just felt like, you know, I was working out, but then my belly was just protruding, and then I had a lot of pain. It got to a point where the pain was so severe that I wouldn't be able to function.
All right, let me take a pause. Mwanakame, for the sake of our audience, could you just highlightly, in a simple sentence, tell us what fibroid is? Because from her story, it can be as small as a pea.
Yeah.
What exactly is fibroids?
Fibroids are actually growths that grow in the uterus.
Right.
But the causes is not known for now, but it's developed due to high estrogen levels, genetics. Like for her case, she wasn't taking alcohol or smoking cigarettes. Definitely, maybe it's due to heredity or the high estrogen levels in her body. That's what fibroids are, but they are 99% are non-cancerous. So it's not cancer. It's just a growth that comes in there.
And what are the symptoms?
The symptoms, there is pain during sex, you're having pain. There is bleeding so much bleeding during menstrual periods. You'll feel that your belly has grown, like the way she's saying, the belly has grown. Also, there are also other things, like you can feel that like there's a mass at your pelvis. You feel that there's an abnormal mass on your pelvis. Those are one of the symptoms that you can get.
Okay, just like maybe, for example, breast cancer, women are advised, even as you shower, check on yourself. Is there a way that at home that there are things women can do to practice and make sure that...
For fibroids, you're supposed to do your pelvic exam throughout. You know, when you feel that there's a hard mass or anything, you're supposed to run to hospital. Because through this, people can do an ultrasound and see, do you have fibroids? There are other things called cysts. Do you have uterine cancer? There are so many things that you can see from the pelvic mass. You're supposed to do your physical exam. See, is your pelvis as normal as it is every day? Yeah.
Okay, so here you are, you're changing doctors. I'm sure you've already told your family at this point. Has it sunk in?
Well, you know, for me, it was a huge shock, excuse me, because it's something that I did not expect, and I did not know anything about it at first. So when I switched doctors, this doctor actually carried out another ultrasound. Yeah, and then when I went for, when the results came out, I had 5 fibroids, and they were large. So, so I went from 1 pea-sized fibroid to 5 really large fibroids.
And what was this waiting period?
And this was let's say a couple of years, because what happened was, you know, you like Monakame just said, you have to keep on checking yourself. You check your body. I mean, you know your body better than your doctor will ever know it,
right?
Because you feel some change and you feel like there's some kind of mass and you feel uncomfortable. So I would experience a lot of pain. I mean, it's pain enough for me to just pass out. When I'm in the house, I would get a lot of pain. I pass out when I, you know, like I know this is not okay. So when I went and had the second ultrasound and I found out they were 5, now the doctor is like, okay, so now we cannot, because when it's a pea-sized fibroid, what happens is what they carry out is a laparoscopic procedure. So it's not invasive. The surgery is not invasive. It's just a laparoscopy whereby they can be able to get rid of the fibroid. But in my case, since during this waiting period, they were many and they were large, so I had to have an invasive surgery.
Could you take us through that invasive surgery she's mentioning, and perhaps what are the methods that doctors use to scan for fibroids?
There are so many different types of treatment. When it's small, you can use anti-hormonal agents where the estrogen levels is taken lower to prevent the fibroids from growing higher. Then there is also surgery. You can, if it's also small, you can use a laparoscopic surgery where that there is a tube. It's a tube that is taken into through your abdomen into the uterus where they get rid of the fibroids. But if they're big, they'll have to cut. Then they remove the fibroids, which sometimes you can do myomectomy where it's the removal of the fibroids itself. Sometimes if it's extensive and you do not want to get kids, you can, the whole uterus can be removed.
Monakame, can fibroids come back again?
Yeah, they can.
There's a possibility of them coming back again?
Yeah, they can. So you're supposed to be on checkup, regular checkups.
Fatma, did that scare you?
Definitely, because I have to mention the fact that just because I had 5 large fibroids, I ended up having deep vein thrombosis, which is DVT.
Right.
So the fibroids were so large that they disrupted circulation, the lower part of my body. So it's just that I was working, I was on set, and I remember I was just doing my links and I had shortness of breath. I couldn't be able to finish. It was really hard. And then I remember that day when I went back home, I was like, I don't feel okay. I feel like this is really something that I can't control. And by the time I went to the hospital, I remember my leg, my right leg was swollen. It was just clearly swollen, painful. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. And I remember the doctor advised that they carry out something called a Doppler ultrasound. So when they did the Doppler ultrasound is when they found the blood clot in my right leg, in the calf area. So when they found out that I had the blood clot, now this changed everything, because as we know, blood clots are actually quite dangerous. So I had to be rushed to hospital so that I could be on blood thinners for a long time, just so my blood does not clot. So I had a series of, I think, around 6 to 7 days in hospital without moving the leg, and you have to, with no motion at all, which is one of the most depressing times of my life. So you have to, you're on blood thinners for a long time, and then immediately after the 7 days, I went back home. So that means I could not do anything else. I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. I remember just wishing I could go to the door, my house, or just put on shoes, because you're not going anywhere. So that was a constant 3 weeks. Of no motion, and so you take blood thinners every single day, and even after the 3 weeks I had to now go back to the hematologist for him to say, yep, you can go back to work, but then you cannot wear heels, you cannot walk for too long, you cannot travel. So when I realized that I could actually end up in this condition, that's what really scared me the most, was the fact that I did not know fibroids could actually lead to deep vein thrombosis. So that's something that I feel most women should know, is that, you know, your doctor might advise you and tell you, you know, this is something we can do. Maybe we can do the surgery, but then let's wait for a while. But as you wait, you might actually end up getting worse.
Yeah. And as you waited, and as you even changed doctors, were you scared of misdiagnosis? Perhaps maybe the first doctor didn't give you as much confidence then, that's why you went looking for a second opinion?
Most definitely, because as I was, you know, like you have relatives, you have sisters, you have friends, and everyone keeps telling you, you know, you don't look okay. And even as they tell you that, you also feel like you're not okay. So when I switched doctors, I did it just so I could be able to have confidence in a doctor that I felt would be able to assist me. And the thing is that the moment I switched doctors, I felt like I was making progress. So I knew that all I have to do is to ensure that I get the fibroids. I have the myomectomy, but you know, it's, of course, we don't have enough time to say everything, but I really want to make sure that I advise all women to ensure that they get regular checkups, and at the same time, when you do realize that you have the fibroids, make sure that you act on them immediately.
All right, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back more with Fatma and Mwanakame after this quick break.
This is KTN News.
We see news from a different perspective. We celebrate news.
The rainfall was a bit down.
Arts and culture. Catch our Friday guest.
I just didn't pass through school like some of us, but school passed through me.
And learn proper pronunciations with Willis the Word Master.
Stadium.
Not stadium.
Not stadium.
This is Friday Briefing. Bigger and definitely better.
Mimi huwa na watch KTN mashinani kwa sababu hiyo inachukua maoni ya mwananchi ambaye ako chini.
Mambo mengi yanafanyika mashinani na tunafurahia KTN kwa sababu wao wenyewe wanaenda wenyewe, wanafika mashinani.
Lazima nitazame hiki kipindi cha KTN leo mashinani.
Kwa nini serikali anatupatia ile bei ambayo ni kidogo? Sababu ardhi area hii ni area mzuri ambayo orkaria iko. Kenya Railway imekuwa, Lami Highway iko, valuation iko, GDC iko, na tunalima mashamba marakwe na mahindi. Wanatuambia wanatupatia milioni 1. Tukiambia twende tuelewane, mtuambie ile bei nafaa, sisi tuseme setu hawataki.
Hii mambo ya watu kuiba mali ya Wakenya, haki ya Mungu itaisha.
Mimi natoa shukrani kwa Uhuru Kenyatta juzi kusema ati itaanza na yeye.
Every public servant will submit themselves for lifestyle audit.
Some of what we are selling around and mixing as sugar has got high contents of mercury.
Tests that have been done so far have not proven any presence of mercury.
You get 411 every 2 minutes of a wholesaler, of a retailer. The culprit is in town walking free.
Now we are reading about a household importing 2 million sticks of cigarettes in 40-foot containers, and that has evaded the Kenya Revenue Authority.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us today on Your Health, we're choosing to discuss and put awareness on fibroids. With me here in studio, if you're just joining us, allow me to reintroduce my guest. Rather, straight closer to me, I have Fatma Mohammed. She is a fibroid survivor. And on my far left, I have Mwanakame Athman. She is a nurse. Mwanakame, now, her story is beautiful, and she's, should I say, one of the few that survive fibroids. The other aspect is, does fibroids rather create, does it bring along other diseases? Does it reel in other issues?
You know, when you have fibroids, you can get anemia due to bleeding. Yeah, you can also renal failure due to, you know, when your fibroid is big, it can press on the bladder. This can cause renal failure, renal infections and all those things. You see, like for her, the complications, she had DVT because of blood clots, since she was also bleeding. You know, excessive pain. There are so many things. You can, infertility, because one might be, you are supposed to remove your whole uterus because the fibroid has affected the whole uterus. If hysterectomy is done, then you end up being infertile. And some fibroids, you can get fibroids even during pregnancy. You know, mostly we say fibroids are caused due to high levels of estrogen, and during pregnancy you have high levels of estrogen. So you also, during pregnancy, you're supposed to also check for fibroids. So you can also end up losing the baby because you can get preterm labor, you can get so many complications related to pregnancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And misdiagnosis, there are cases where women have been misdiagnosed.
Yeah, you know, there is also cyst, which is a fluid. There are also cysts that can form. So one may have a cyst, then the doctor diagnoses it as a fibroid. And you know, cysts it's just a fluid sac that has formed in the uterus. So, you know, you have to do ultrasounds, you have to check, you have to go to a reliable doctor.
And okay, we know that you had mentioned earlier that the cause is yet to be known. Yeah. But in regards to Fatma's story, she doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, she seemed to be living a healthy lifestyle. So what are some of the myths, some of the hypotheses thrown outside there, perhaps in the medical field, that on what could cause fibroids?
There is also genetics. If your parents have, if your mom, your auntie, your grandma has suffered from fibroids, you're at a high risk of getting fibroids. So you're supposed also to check. You're supposed to go for, after every 6 months for a normal woman, you're supposed to go for checkups, ultrasounds and all those, so that you can check, is your estrogen levels okay, which birth control pills are you using, which birth methods are you using, controlling methods are you using. You're supposed to be at par with. You're supposed to go for checkups regularly.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Fatma, here you are, you're finally healed, you're back to work. Has this changed your life in any way?
Most definitely, I have to say, because I did not have an idea of what this could turn into. Because when I would be unwell, majority of the times people would be like, oh, but what's wrong with you? And I would say I have fibroids, and people would be like, oh, thank God, at least it's not cancer. And then, you know, deep down inside, I was dying because I was like, I'm in a lot of pain. I mean, it's confusing. But as much as I understand that, I have to mention something that I discovered throughout this process, which is the fact that you could have a good doctor or the best doctor, but I feel like as a woman you should know your body and understand your body, in the sense that if you feel something is wrong, I mean, the doctor is there to guide you, but then you feel what you feel. So if you feel like something is wrong, be sure to do something about it. Don't wait, because it will cost more. You might end up with more complications. It will just create havoc in your life. And at the same time, when you carry out an ultrasound, when the radiologist carries out the ultrasound, please be aware of the fact that it's like 99.99%, because when I went for my myomectomy, and the doctor discovered that the fibroids were not 5, they were 21 fibroids. So it means that every single time, I went to so many hospitals in this country.
So it moved from a P size to 5 to 21.
Yeah. So when I had them removed, which I remember like it was yesterday. I remember when I was out of when they took me back to the ward. I remember the nurse came to wake me up and say, "Fatma, I have to show you what came out of your body, because it's like protocol. They have to show you." But I didn't understand why she had like a whole bucket of, like, I couldn't really understand what is this she's showing me. And then later on, like when I came back to my senses and everyone was surrounding me in the room, they were like, okay, so did you know they were actually 21? And here I was, like for years I would go for ultrasounds in really like fancy hospitals, and I knew I just had 5 fibroids, and I knew this is how I'm going to be able to deal with it.
Manakame, help us understand that. Why is it that probably when she went for her first scan, should I say it was P size, only to be 5, and then she's gone already to proper medical facilities, and that 5 turns out to be 21. What is the mismatch there?
Fibroids can grow due to estrogen levels. Also diet. You know, we like consuming a lot of meat, saying that ukikula nyama, it's because you are rich and everything, but you're supposed to take more vegetables than meat. So you know, when you're not getting your diet right, when your estrogen levels are high, when you're using wrong birth control pills, this can also escalate things. Yeah.
I feel like, may I interrupt? Yes. I feel like in my situation, it was like, I'm still in my reproductive years. So that's the one thing that I remember the doctor telling me, you're still in your reproductive years. So as we keep on going, they'll keep on growing, because that simply means that your estrogen levels are not balanced. And I realized that not many women are aware that you can actually go to a hospital and get your estrogen levels checked out. And because when you start noticing some things in your body, for instance, you start feeling like, you start seeing like you have like 2 gray hairs in your hair. Like I would see that, and people would be like, you know, these are some of the myths. People would be like, maybe you're going to be rich, or maybe you're like, these are some of the things people would say. And then I would feel like my body was different. Like I would feel really hot during the day, even when everybody else is freezing. And then, you know, some of these things. So when I would sit down with the doctor and explain, he'd be like, okay, so maybe we need to check your estrogen levels. And of course, sure enough, we find out that my estrogen levels are higher than progesterone. So it means that there are so many women who are not aware of the fact that they can actually have this checked out. You can go to a facility and check and see that.
But Monakame, within the health sector here in Kenya, is that free?
It's not free.
It's not free. So a lady can walk in and have their
and it's not all hospitals that you can get your estrogen levels checked. There are some specific hospitals, and the lab hospitals, they also do estrogen levels. But it's good to get your estrogen levels checked, especially when you're on birth control pills. You know, you're adding more estrogen to your body. You're supposed to get your estrogen levels checked.
And also hormonal replacement clinics are available in the country. So throughout the process, let me just say, I became like, I learned so much. I can tell. I know most every gynecologist. I know who's good at this and who's good at that. And also it's like a silver lining.
But do you feel like that information was outside there, or you struggled to get it?
I struggled, and I had like family members they sent me ebooks. They would buy ebooks and send them to me, and I would read, and then I would also do a lot of research. I would do it at the expense of my money. I mean, I paid, because you don't use insurance to go to these places. And most gynecologists actually range from, I mean, for you to see a gynecologist between, let's say, 5,000 to maybe 10,000 shillings, and they don't take insurance, and they just tell you point blank. So almost everyone has sent me the best gynecologist and told me, go to so-and-so, go to so-and-so. And then, you know, when you go to these clinics, which are the hormonal replacement clinics, what they put you through is hormonal replacement therapies. So you find that there are some women who have to undergo therapy in such a way that now they have to like change your entire system now. They have to make sure that your estrogen levels go lower. So they might do it naturally, or it could be synthetic. So they can use diet, they can use medication, and all of that.
All right. So here you are, you've recovered. Do you still go for checkups? Do you probably want to still be a mom?
Yeah.
Do you feel that maybe it might interfere?
I don't. Let me just say that personally, I'm a big believer, and I'm very resilient. So I feel like when everything happened, I just told myself, if I went through everything and I go through DVT and I was okay, I feel like there's nothing that can stop me.
All right. Monakame, what are your closing remarks?
The problem with our society is that we don't want to talk about reproductive health. Everyone is now, from the age groups, people are sexually active, but you wouldn't want to know what methods are they using to prevent pregnancy. No one wants to talk about all this. You know, it's good to talk about this to your kids, to your sisters. It's good to talk about all this. It's good to have good hygiene when it comes to your private parts. There are like some people who believe that you're not supposed to wash your private parts. The thing is, you're supposed to wash your private parts with soap and water. soap that it's not an antibacterial soap, general soap. You just wash, you make sure it's washed properly and dry. That maintain hygiene, eat right, more vegetables, talk about reproductive health to your sisters, to your siblings, and everybody else.
All right. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here
Thank
this morning.
you.
Fatma, thank you for sharing your story and being a voice in this aspect.
Thank you.
All right. So that was Fatma Mohammed. She's a fibroid survivor, as well as Mwana Kame Athman, who is a nurse helping us understand the aspect and reality of fibroids. And that's not the end. It shouldn't be where your story ends. Now, I want to join my colleague Michael Gitonga, who is here.